So good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. I just wanted to welcome you to the Talent Finders podcast. And I wanted to welcome Neeley Kolsch from the CEO and founder of WELL KEPT. So welcome, Neeley.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. I want where did your journey begin as an entrepreneur, and was this something you wanted to pursue? So if you could just give us a bit of background, please.
Sure. Well, I can tell you my journey began as an entrepreneur. I think as being a 7-year-old selling Kool-Aid. So I've always kind of been a hustler. I loved setting up my Kool-Aid stand. I loved selling Girl Scout cookies. I loved fundraising as a cheerleader and selling candy bars. I just have always loved the thrill of the sell and really making things happen behind the scenes. So I actually started Well Kept in 2012, and the idea for the product really came from being on call 24/7. I have a background in disaster recovery, so whenever a major hurricane or tornado or really natural disaster would occur, I would go down to the site and be on ground zero, and that required me to be on call and use my electronics. So I started noticing that I was getting breakouts along the side of my face. And after some research, I learned it was from a dirty phone. So I started looking for something to clean it with. And I went to all these electronics stores and office supply stores, and everything on the market was just really bulky and big and just not what I was looking for. So it sparked an idea to develop a product. So I started this thinking about a product more so than starting a great business.
Oh wow, it's amazing. So when Well Kept was founded, what were some of the entrepreneurial challenges you faced in the process of developing the screen cleaning palette, and how did you go about manufacturing the process, or what was the manufacturing process for that?
Yeah, well, I would say the biggest challenge was certainly the manufacturing process. I think anybody that has a product probably can relate to that particular topic. So, um, what I did is I kind of took my experience just in other industries and said, there's got to be a governing body where people go for education and CEUs in this particular segment. So I reached out to some associations associated with the nonwovens and towelettes and contacted them and actually worked with a consultant. So I knew that I wanted to initially work with a manufacturer in the US too. That was important to me.
Yeah.
I wanted to go meet with them. I wanted to shake their hand. I wanted to look them in the eye and tell them what I wanted to start. I was actually really concerned about working overseas just because I had heard that there'd been just issues and delays with customs and not getting the right um, products. And I mean, I know some people that do great businesses overseas, but I was just nervous being a first time product developer. So, um, but I found a consultant and went to the base of education for the industry.
Wow, that's amazing. So, so uh, what were some of the biggest lessons being an entrepreneur, and what do you wish you had known when you started up Well Kept?
Oh gosh, some of the biggest lessons. I mean, I think what I have found is even when things go wrong, there's something to learn from it. Again, I mean, I really started this as kind of a fun thing. I wanted to develop something that I would use, that I knew my friends would use, and I had actually pitched it to a friend before we even started. She owned a boutique group based in Atlanta. It's called Fabric Boutiques. They actually have 40, 45 plus locations now, but I pitched the idea to her and just said, got this idea for screen wipes. They're going to be, great ingredients, great closure, great packaging. And she said, I love the idea. if you have them ready by Black Friday, I'll put them in all my stores. So I instantly had a customer, which is what I wanted going into it. Even though I was creating it for my friends, I wanted to at least help get my investment back. So, um, so I would say some lessons learned were just do as much research. I mean, I remember my manufacturer saying I need a PO, and I didn't know what a PO was. So I
Yes.
Googled PO. What's a PO document? And I got a template online and sent it over and said, "Here's my PO." So I think while there were challenges, I would say my biggest challenge was I didn't have a retail background, but so just learning the process of shipping and packing slips and just the basics that come along with retail, I had to kind of learn as I went. So, but it probably gave me fresh eyes too. So
Yes.
I will say, but I would say the biggest challenge as an entrepreneur is the emotional side of it. You can
Yes.
learn the business, but how you deal with the roller coasters
Yes.
of, you get a call from Women's Health Magazine and they want to place you. That's awesome. But
Yeah.
then when you get a call from somebody that a retailer that says no and they're not going to place you in their stores. I mean, there's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So just dealing with that part, I think, is the biggest lesson um, along the way, and also realizing you've got to be all in.
Yes.
Um, as a woman, I think in particular, I mean, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a worker, there's all these things to manage, and but realizing what's valuable, how can you work most efficiently, and if your heart's not in it, you're not leading your team well, then your productivity of your organization is going to reflect that. So
Yes, absolutely. And you have to obviously have a passion for what you're doing. Just like you said, you have to
mm,
take the rejection with the good with the rejection. So it's definitely twofold. So the next question is there's a big focus on women in the entrepreneurial landscape, even more so now than in the last 5 years. Do you believe that it is easier than what it was, or do you still feel that that we are up against difficulties in terms of male-dominated industries? And what would your advice be to women who are in startups um, in our current entrepreneurial landscape?
well, I think that personally for me, when I started, I didn't feel this disadvantage being a woman. I actually, in my corporate life, have always been a minority in the disaster recovery world. It tends to be male dominated, and very rare to have a woman in the field driving an F-350 diesel truck. I mean, it's just not common. So I've kind of hung out with the boys through my corporate career.
Yeah,
But I do see that there's a big push of women coming together, women founders, and uh, where I see the disadvantage, I've heard some statistics that um, when it comes to funding, that I want to say it's under 5% of
yeah,
women founded businesses get funded.
yeah,
So I think that um, as women founders especially, there's this niche of women that are coming together, which is
yeah,
awesome to see. A lot of collaboration. So it is improving. um, but I have found recently, probably like you, Karen, I listen to podcasts and
yeah,
watch what my competition's doing, and I hear what some of my you know just competitors or other people in the personal care consumer space are doing. And I hear these men talking, and I'm thinking, man, it is an advantage being a woman. I
yeah,
mean, I can add, I really try to, we're trying to connect the dots of Well Kept being wipes with heart. We want to um, really bring more joy in your cleaning and more delight in your gifting and giving.
yeah,
And we want to teach people how to give, but it's giving products as gifts. It's also giving from being a philanthropist.
yeah.
And I
So
feel like,
critical.
yeah, when you add that feminine element to your organization, it's an advantage. It's like that intangible superpower that a man can't steamroll. So I think it's an advantage, but I do see how it's risen over the past 5 years of women coming together.
Great. Well, thank you for that. So the the next question that I had for you is, you had an exciting opportunity through the founder of Spanx, Sarah Blakey, in the Spanx Leg Up competition. Um, and the opportunity, what was it like in terms of having the opportunity to meet Sarah herself? And can you please tell us a little bit more about this amazing experience and what was the outcome?
Sure. Well, in later in 2012, I saw that Spanx had this program called the Leg, and it was where Spanx would really they would select an entrepreneur each quarter and feature their story. And the basis behind it was Oprah gave Sarah her leg up when she brought her on the show, and she wanted to give entrepreneurs a leg up as well. So I remember applying. I want to say it was in 2013. I ended up sending my first submission, and I sent it to them, and I got a letter back that said, "Thanks for applying." Almost like, thanks, but we would like you to reply in the future. So they did not select me. Um, so I resubmitted for holiday, and I sent them this package, and it was really clever, I thought at the time, where I sent a stocking stuffer or a stocking, and I put Spanx on it, and then stuffed it with all these wipes and little ornament electronics, and wrote a note to Spanx saying that they'd been naughty and they needed to keep their technology clean, and it was like a letter from Santa. So
Uh,
I remember getting this email back from them saying that I had been selected, and they were going to feature us as the must-have stocking stuffer for holiday, which holiday
wow.
exposure is huge. So
Yeah.
so to get that instant credibility, I mean, I think instantly it added some credibility to the brand. I've always loved Sarah's story before even starting Well Kept. I mean, just her ability to start with $5,000, and she grew this empire, and she gives back, and she started with one product, and I don't know, there's just so much that I could relate to within her story. So it was a huge honor to get noticed by a hero. And I think over time, what that's done is it's added some credibility to the brand. It's given me some personal confidence in what we've been doing. But they've also they've had some entrepreneurial courses along the way where we've done some training and some education with them. And really, Spanx has done such a good job of keeping us connected to them periodically when they're talking to their leg up winners. So I did have the opportunity to have lunch with Sarah. She had an interview with the Wall Street Journal, and she connected with us. I mean, she wanted to hear what we were doing. I would say she's a very relatable person. You felt like you're sitting at a table with one of your girlfriends,
Oh,
not this
wow.
powerhouse billionaire. Just kind and thoughtful and smart and funny. So very likable. I see why she's come so far. So it was a great experience and something that I'm proud of. And what it did though is it inspired me to start connecting the dots with our giving back within Well Kept. So we were selected, and then I ended up going to Africa after that. That it was in February. Um, and I read this book from Blake Mikowski, the founder of Tom's, and it's called Start Something That Matters. And he talks about being, but also doing good things. And that's when we decided to create our first giving back pattern for Well Kept. So,
Wow, that's amazing. That's
yep.
amazing. Um, so the next question is, do you feel that women are far more supporting of each other as founders and in leadership roles than they ever were before?
Well, I definitely think they're supportive now. Um, I don't know 10 years ago, 15 years ago, how it was because I wasn't in the space.
Yeah.
But I think that today, this morning, I had a group text with female founders encouraging each other.
Mm,
And it's just so nice to have that camaraderie and support along the way. So,
amazing. So with your group, is it? I mean, how because this was part of the other question, or leading on, is that there seems to be, a lot of groups and a lot of different um, VC groups and investor groups and things like that. But in terms of, in your opinion, is this something that you think should be a free concept? Because I've noticed that there are a lot of female founders or VCs that you have to pay sort of a membership fee. So the support that, or the network support that you have, is this a free network, or is it people that you've built over time? How does it work?
So I'm sorry, how have I met these women? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So basically, let me rephrase that. So, for example, with the network that you've been talking about now, the support network for female founders and entrepreneurs, is this something that you put together, or is it a group that you became a part of over time? Um, and how did you connect with these other female founders or other women?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think it's come from a multiple places. So, some of it started where when I started attending female networking associations for business owners. I attended a group called Spark and Hustle, hosted by Tori Johnson. She does the deals and steals on Good Morning America, and I met some women there, and we just found a connection and have stayed in touch over time. And
Oh, wow.
then there's been some other groups that I've been a part of. I'm currently in one that's amazing. It's called Hey Mama. And it's a group of female entrepreneurs that are also mothers. So we've kind of got this bond of understanding time is money and trying to be efficient as possible. So there could be advice on potty training your toddler to how do I get understand my financials better as an organization. So women that want to participate and want to lean in, and so I've done it that way. I've also found some local groups, and then there's your friends that are in business. So I'm an extrovert. I like community. I like engaging with other founders, and I like listening and learning. So I think I just find ways to plug in where I can.
Okay, well, that's amazing. Um, So the next question is, how do you define leadership, and what do you think um, and believe this means as a founder and an entrepreneur?
Sure. I think honestly, there's you can be a founder. I mean, I heard something. You can go to Alibaba and buy some product and make a company overnight
Yeah,
and say you're a founder of something. But there's a difference between having a business and leading a business.
yeah.
I think leadership, first of all, um, the first thing you need to do is be able to cast a vision, and you need to be able to get your team on board for that vision and bring people alongside with you. So um to me, it's being a visionary in leadership. It's also setting good examples for your team. I mean, your team's only going to be as strong as you are, and I have found that. So if i'm not um if I'm not working hard, then I can't expect them to do the same. So you want to match what your team is doing. And not that you can't encourage each other along the way, but you've got to stay focused. So
Absolutely.
that's what I'd say.
Um, so uh, we coming to a closing soon, but I see that you're very aware of creating sustainable packaging. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? I know you touched on it briefly earlier, but is this something that's part of a philanthropic drive to give back? Um, what is your mission in terms of the sustainable packaging?
Sure. Well, we try to limit as much waste as possible. We do have a flat pack configuration, so it's our screen wipes have 15 tellets inside. Um, just that means of packaging and transportation. where it's not like we're using big canisters and plastic. So we definitely have a reduction in plastic in what we're doing. We also work with green facilities. So, or just from our manufacturing point where we start, we're working with people that are reducing energy, logistics, where you've got some campaigns behind the scenes where we're reducing our carbon footprint there. So we are mindful in what we do. We're not totally, packageless, and but I think that things are moving in that direction, reducing cardboard and that type of thing. So, um, but we try to be mindful from manufacturing to production.
So that's amazing. Um, so uh, the second last question is, what is your advice to other female founders and startups? Where and what would you recommend who are starting to look for funding?
Well, I personally have not gotten funding or investors. I started with a small amount. It was under $10,000 to get started, and I have slowly grown the business along the way. But I think for those women that really want to get investors, from what I've seen, you've got to put together a good presentation and pitch deck, working with experts to understand your numbers and understand who you are. Um, and then there's actually been a really cool organization that I've seen pop up, and actually know somebody that's an investor and a funder. It's called I Fund Women, and it's a new campaign, of group. Um, Crowdsourcing for funds, but it's specifically for women. And Hey Mama's the networking association that I've joined, and they just got funded $100,000. So there's
Wow.
definitely people out there, and there's women coming together. I think because there is kind of that small space where women are getting funded. So there's connections you can make, but I think you need to be prepared. And I think you also need to know what you're going to do with that money. I mean, it
Yeah.
could sound great to say, oh, I need $500,000, but what are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
You've got to have a plan. And I would say, focus on the minimum that you need to get started. I heard this great podcast from Rachel Hollis, who wrote the book Girl Wash Your Face, and now she's got Girl Stop Apologizing out. And a lot of times we go into starting a business and we think, okay, I need the best business cards, and I need the best website, and I need the best this and that, and you've spent all your money and you don't even have a product, and you don't even have um, something you can bring to market. So I think you need to step back and say, what do I really need? What's a necessity, and what's going to help me make money? It sounds fun to invest in all the pretty things, but if it's
Yeah.
not going to be beneficial in the beginning when money is so tight, then just say no. So be smart
Yes.
with your money.
No, that's amazing and great advice. Thank you so much. And the last question to finish off is, what are the three key pieces of advice to any entrepreneurs um, that you could share with others listening today that you feel would be invaluable?
I think the first would be find community. And you can find community in a Facebook group. You can find community flying to a trade show or networking event. But you can do it regardless if you're working from home or if you've got a life on the road. So I think that's really important. I think you also need to take time to reset and refuel. Every year I take a personal retreat, and I'll go check myself into a hotel, and I've got this whole just agenda that I kind of walk through, reflecting on what worked the year before, what I would like to do in the future. I always incorporate some self care, get a massage, and that's something I do annually. And it's turning into quarterly already, which has been awesome. I've got something
Wow.
booked in April, and then I've got something else booked in July. So I think for as hard as you run as an entrepreneur, you need to stop.
Yes.
Um, and sometimes when you stop and there's silence, you can hear. Um, and I think that that's really important. And then the last thing I would say is learn as much as you can. I think that if you're a creative, then you may think, oh, I'm not good at math, but you need to learn your numbers. You need to understand the balance sheet. And I'd also say, even though it's not your strength, you need to know it, but it's also really important to delegate. I see so many founders out there that they're the same person creating the product, they're the same person doing the marketing campaign, they're the same person packing and shipping. And there's things you can do to work smarter. You can get warehouses, you can get fulfillment centers, you don't have to do it all. And you'll be surprised that once you start to let go, how your business can grow. So delegate.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Neeley. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, we'll definitely be in contact, and hopefully we can do a follow-up interview maybe in a year's time or whatever, just to see how your growth is.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.